Now, there have been mixed reactions to the announcement by President Cyril Ramaphosa in his SONA that the special 350 Rand Covid-19 grant will be extended by a further 3 months. Some citizens say the money is not enough to keep them afloat amid the pandemic, while other civil society organizations are calling for the grant amount to be increased. For more on this, we're joined by Busisiwe Memela, who is the CEO of the South Africa Social Security Agency. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
A very good afternoon. Thank you very much to you, and thank you to the audience that's listening to understand as to what the process is.
Now, the President announced the 3-month extension of the distribution of the special grant. Was this an announcement that you were actually anticipating?
It's an announcement we were hoping for because we understand the pressures that people that have been receiving this grant are still continuing to go through in light of the fact that the pandemic continues to impact on them, and that with us being in the space that we're in, with the lack of jobs and many other people having lost their jobs, that this is an amount that may be little, but it does put bread on the table. So we really are happy with the fact that the President announced that this will continue, and we're happy for our clients and we're happy for those that are vulnerable.
And just speaking about the amount being little, is there any possibility at all of it being increased, even by a small margin?
I think when we look at the pressures that the country is facing in terms of budgets and allocations, I don't know, I can't speak for National Treasury, but I can imagine that there's a lot of strain that they are also facing in terms of balancing all the different issues that we need to fund as a country. So much as we may hope, I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge in terms of what government can do.
We continue our conversation with the CEO of SASSA, Ms. Busisiwe Memela. Now, I just believe that SASSA processes multitudes of applications on a monthly basis. Under what circumstances do people who actually qualify, citizens who qualify for this grant, get declined by the system?
They get declined by the system if the clients are getting another grant from the state, which either may be related to the COVID programs that the country has put in place, or they could actually be receiving a grant from SASSA, be it a child support grant or any other grant. And in some instances, they get declined because they actually are sitting currently on the databases of all the areas that we actually are integrated with for us to be able to make a decision on the grant. For example, if one still remains in the UIF a database indicating that the person still receives the grant, it therefore means that we cannot provide one. Or if a student is registered with NSFAS and they still remain in the database as indicating that they still are receiving the grant, it becomes difficult for us to approve that because it becomes a negative audit.
And for those that actually were receiving the grant, that applied and have been receiving it with no problems, would they have to reapply for the 3-month extension? Or is it automatically renewed by the system?
Definitely don't have to continue to apply, because the system on a monthly basis, we actually reassess all the 9.7 million people that have applied in the previous months, and then would automatically approve those clients. So the key thing to highlight is the fact that people that have applied don't have to reapply again. Those people that have already sent an appeal application to say they need to appeal because they don't receive any other funding from any other grant also don't have to reapply again because or request again for them to be appealing, because it just complicates and clogs the system. So we really are pleading for those that have already appealed not to appeal again. We also are pleading with those that have not gone to actually draw their money, because we've got over 600,000 people whom we have approved. We've continued to pay over the months, and they have not gone to get their money from the post office. And I understand that the frustration may be just the queues that people have to go through. We're looking at other alternatives together with the post office and the banks so that we can make sure that we don't continue to get to a situation where we have these long queues at the post office. So we're looking at alternatives.
And just speaking about those long queues at the post office, in one of the statements from your department, there was a call for people who normally receive cash from the post office to actually open bank accounts and then update their information onto your system so that the money can actually be paid to those bank accounts. Have you been able to see from the back end if people are actually complying with that? Are there more people updating their details and receiving their money through cards versus receiving it via cash?
The numbers continue to be very, very small in terms of people that are updating their bank details. And the opportunity that our people have is that many of the banks actually have a cell phone banking solutions that they can apply to. All you need is to go to any bank and apply for a affordable banking product so that we can be able to pay you through the bank so that you don't have to queue, because we do understand that not only does it put pressure on the clients, but also put pressure on the post office in terms of them being able to manage the 4 million clients that are currently getting paid through the post office.
And some of the challenges that people mention apart from the queues at post offices, the fact that they get to a point where they've been in the queue, they get to the front and then they're told that the money's finished for the day. Are there ways to actually mitigate this and see how many people come in on a daily basis and have enough money allocated per post office?
Each and every post office on a daily basis, we actually give an allocation of specific numbers that can actually go to a post office, a given post office. And we do send SMSs to the individuals that need to go and get the money. But sometimes, I suppose, out of desperation and frustration, people would normally go, even if they haven't received the SMS, for them to actually go to the post office. And I think this is the challenge that gets complicated. The other thing that would like to plead to our people, we know that people will find business opportunities even in the most difficult of instances. Those people that are clogging the queues because they want to sell a spot, we really would like to plead with them to stop that, because it does create quite a bit of aggravation amongst clients who, when they actually get to the post office, they find that there's people that are clogging the queue and they expect them to pay with the very little money that they already have. We're pleading to our communities. We know that everybody is desperate, but please, by selling those spots that people may have to people that are already desperate, I think it's something that is really, really unfair to the poor.
It really is. And just speaking about some of the processes where people actually want to apply, or maybe they've got some questions they want to ask, instead of going to the physical offices, can you tell our viewers the different ways in which they can actually apply or follow up on their applications apart from physically going to the offices?
Actually, when it comes particularly to the 350, the offices cannot help anybody that goes to the offices, because the 350 is specifically done digitally. So what people are still expected to continue, should they be wanting to apply, that is, if there's also new people that have not applied in the past that want to apply, they can apply through a WhatsApp line, which is 082 046 8553, or they can also apply on the on email http://srd.sassa.gov.za. Nobody can go to a SASSA office to apply for the 350. The offices cannot help you, because we're trying to move as many of the lines from the offices to ensure that people can apply digitally. And already over 9.7 million people have already used this platform for them to apply. So 350, it cannot be done at a SASSA office.
The issue of the appeals that some people have made, how long does the appeal process actually take?
The appeals, what I would like to do is to first apologize to the appeals, because they've taken longer than they should have. And this is because we needed to make sure that we have a contract with the bank. So, because when you do an appeal, over and above checking you on the different databases that we check you on, the other thing that we do, we actually take all the database and send it to the different banks so that we can ensure that people actually don't have money. So that's the second phase that we actually do to assess as to whether you've got money in your bank account, because you shouldn't be having any allocated money, whether it's from family and friends, for us to be able to consider the appeal.
Now, considering the effects of the coronavirus pandemic, is there any sort of talk of perhaps making this 350 Rand a more permanent situation beyond the 3-month extension?
I think there's been a dialogue and engagements within government structures to look at what else is it that we need to do going forward as a country, not only because of the pandemic, but because we continue to be faced by unemployment, not only for the youth, but general unemployment, with 2 million people having been added on the unemployed people. So there is discussions within government structures to look at what is it that can be done going forward. But I believe the challenge becomes just the pressures that we face as a country, economic pressures that we face as a country, with the understanding that people are actually even facing worse challenges because of the pandemic, unemployment, and also all other issues that we are facing that not only impact on the adults, but impact on the children in terms of food and ensuring that the kids are able to go to bed and don't go to bed hungry. And the issue of the schools also is going to assist, because that's the other reliance and support that government provides for the children.
And just lastly, you had a message of reassurance in your statement for citizens who had their special COVID grant approved but not yet paid by the end of January.
We will definitely we actually have made extended efforts for us to make sure that everybody that needs to be paid gets paid. That's why we've currently have paid 99.6% of the people. What I would like to plead with people is, already we're getting telephone calls of people saying, when is my February payment? We still have to go and reassess everybody that has applied in the past, and we will definitely pay by March for all the people that have not been paid for February. But we just have been, this has just been announced, and it's not practically possible for us to pay it immediately.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That was the CEO of SASSA, Busisiwe Memela. And just a reminder, if you're watching and you want to actually apply for that grant and haven't yet done so, you can send a WhatsApp to 082 046 8553. That's 082 046 8553.